In the last part of this video series, I discussed how Naruto's first episode wasn't just good, but even great to at least some degree, something that I consider vital to any good show. The hook has been firmly embedded in potential new fans, but did it manage to keep that hook in place as the series continued forward? Well, in order to keep the audience's attention, the first thing on a Shonen Jump author's to-do list after establishing his main character is to remind us that said main character isn't the only notable person in the series. While this point is true of most stories, stacking the cast and building up a large and varied set of primary and secondary characters for the main character to interact with is an integral element of Shonen Jump storytelling. Having a wide array of characters is essential because it A. fleshes out your world with new perspectives and ideas to form a more well-realized setting, and B. increases the likelihood of young readers identifying with certain characters. So how does Naruto handle creating its own character cast? Surprisingly well, actually, even within its genre. Take a moment right now and try to remember by name as many characters as you can, and you'd be surprised how many you can name without even looking them up. Naruto has an insanely memorable cast with many characters that we can look back on in fondness, either because they're surprisingly fleshed out and complex, or because they have an extremely memorable trait. So Naruto has an extremely strong cast. That's kind of a given at this point. The real question is, how does it manage to do that? Before we get to that, however, we first need to take a quick detour to talk about episode 2, which I used to think was the weakest of these introductory episodes, but I now have a lot more respect for. Also, going forward from here, I will be making reference to the manga when necessary to whatever degree is required, as the manga's success is just as important to understanding Naruto as the anime. Rather than continue to drive the plot forward, which is kind of surprising in hindsight since Naruto has developed a reputation for being extensively plot-driven, the first chunk of the series is more so dedicated to smaller vignettes based around interesting concepts or characters. This is actually pretty common in shonen manga, even with some of the big series that we've come to associate with denser plot elements. Taking a few chapters to explore some more episodic ideas before diving into a larger narrative gives the author time to decide where exactly he wants the story to go. Does he want the story to stay low-key and episodic for most of its run, or does he want a grand narrative with world-threatening villains or continent-spanning quests, or maybe a mixture of both? And what are the exact specifics of both of those types of storytelling? Dragon Ball, Yu Yu Hakusho, Bleach, Gintama, all of these series started off episodic but eventually grew into larger narratives with more significant consequences. The only big ones from the old days that don't really follow this formula are Hunter x Hunter, because Togashi had already written what was essentially his Shonen Jump doctorate with Yu Yu Hakusho and probably wanted to try something a bit more out there, and One Piece because, in its own bizarre way, One Piece manages to embody the spirit of episodic content in the form of much longer narrative arcs. So Naruto's slight deviation into episodic content isn't exactly unique, but what really interests me is how quickly it transitions into a more complex narrative. If we look at the manga, you have Chapter 1 setting up Naruto as a character, Chapter 2 showing us his interactions with Konohamaru, Chapter 3 letting us get to know Sasuke and Sakura, and then Chapters 4 through 8 all dealing with their first introduction to Kakashi and the Bell Test. It's not until Chapter 9 that the Land of Waves arc begins, but you could probably argue that Naruto stopped being episodic around Chapters 5 or 6, with Kakashi's extensive introduction acting as a primer for things to come. Hell, you could even argue that Chapter 3 was the last episodic moment because the Kakashi mini-arc is all about Squad 7 getting more acquainted with each other and with their new teacher. These chapters all serve a unanimous point, so it isn't really episodic anymore. In any case, Episode 2 is an interesting episodic diversion for a couple of reasons that strengthen this introductory arc in a surprising number of ways, but we'll focus on the two most important ones for now. Firstly, it reinforces the nature of Naruto's relationship with others in the Leaf Village and how they view him as the bearer of the nine-tailed fox. Mizuki was just one person after all, and there are countless others, such as Konohamaru's teacher Ebisu, who have developed a prejudice against Naruto because of the fox spirit dwelling within him. But these people aren't villains like Mizuki. Some of them aren't even antagonists. They're just people who don't like Naruto because of his circumstances. Naruto is fighting against a system of beliefs, not an individual or group of individuals. Yes, he fights bad guys who want to kill him and his friends, but it's all in service of a greater, more personal cause. And the series occasionally reminds us of that through the actions of characters that mean practically nothing to us, but everything to Naruto. These are the people who Naruto wants respect from. He doesn't want to defeat them or punish them, he just wants to be liked by other people, which is why he's so excited to take Konohamaru under his wing once he sees that Konohamaru is respecting him and showering him with attention. This is the kind of approach to jump protagonists I tried to explain in my Boruto video, but didn't go into enough detail about. Ichigo fights Hollows because everyone will die if he doesn't, but Naruto fights enemy ninja because it's a path towards becoming a respected member of his community. He is striving towards a goal that he chose for himself without coercion. Naruto does not have to be a ninja. There are no forces other than his own ambition and desire to be respected that are making him be a ninja, and that intensely personal drive and focus is what makes Naruto so compelling to watch. Secondly, this episode informs us of another of Naruto's traits that will become much more relevant in later arcs, and as such is important to set up right away, his charisma. Yes, Naruto is an insanely charismatic person. Obviously not an eloquent or tactful one, but charismatic nonetheless. It's through his gruffness and his intense determination that he's able to convince people that he is right and that others should follow his line of thinking. Many people have taken this to have a much more negative effect on the story and describe it using pejorative terms like talk no jutsu, but again, this will become much more pertinent later. For right now though, in just a few hours of interaction, Naruto is able to have a serious impact on Konohamaru's worldview and how he plans to accomplish his own dreams of becoming Hokage. Yes, Konohamaru is a child, and as such he is naturally susceptible to new worldviews, but it's still a significant demonstration of this trait. There is a lot more I could say about this episode, but I won't because this video series would get excessively repetitive if I stopped to analyze every single piece of character construction or world building along the way. But when it's relevant, stopping to smell the roses can be refreshing and enlightening. And that's kinda how I feel about this episode in general. Which brings us to episode 3, where we witness the initial formation of Squad 7 and a more proper introduction to Sasuke and Sakura, who only had brief appearances in episode 1. And unfortunately, this is probably the weakest of these introductory episodes, as it makes some, let's say, bold choices when it comes to characterization. In any case, setting up the rest of the primary characters in a show outside of the central character is extremely important, possibly just as important as that central character. Not only do they have to be believable and interesting characters in their own rights, but they also have to relate to the main character in a meaningful way and cause him to experience things that he otherwise wouldn't have. If they can't do that, then they're just accessories to the story. I'm not saying that everything needs to revolve around the main character, that would create an extremely unbalanced world, but the primary characters should all have some kind of relationship that makes their dynamic interesting or allows them to grow in some capacity. The first new character we're introduced to in this episode is Sakura, and oh boy, did I forget about a lot of the really terrible stuff that she does in this episode. Let's not sugarcoat this, people. Sakura starts off as a gigantic bitch. She's selfish, vain, envious, and just mean-spirited in general. However, in this instance, I might actually call that a good thing. I don't think a character necessarily has to start off as likable in the traditional sense, especially if that unlikable attitude can be used as a tool for character development, which they managed to do in this episode. We get our first proper introduction to Sakura as she prepares to leave for class for the day. Before she even opens her mouth, however, we're clued into a lot of details about her character through the set design. Our first shot of Sakura is her looking into a mirror to make sure she looks cute enough to impress others when she goes out in public, indicating that she has some issues with vanity and self-importance, which she ends up dwelling on later in the episode. Additionally, though this detail is mostly lost on Western viewers who don't understand Japanese, we see a shot of this robe with a large pair of kanji emblazoned on it that reads Tokon, which roughly translates to fighting spirit, indicating that Sakura is going to share some traits with the firebrand archetype and is going to have an extremely potent personality. And of course, all of this is reinforced once she actually does open her mouth, with her first line being her back-talking her mother. This is a very important detail that we will come back to later, and it works well in conjunction with the rest of her actions, fighting with Ino, pushing Naruto out of the way, straight up beating the shit out of him, to show that she has an aggressive, hot-headed, and just kind of nasty demeanor. On the whole, Sakura is a great example of the distinction between a bad character and a bad person. A bad character is one whose actions are inconsistent and illogical, and generally has an ill-defined or inconsistent personality. These characters are frustrating or annoying to watch because their actions don't make sense or their motives are too convoluted or undefinable to understand, and generally leads to a less fulfilling story overall. A bad person is, well, just that. The character's personality and actions make sense and are easy to understand, but the character is still frustrating or annoying because said personality and actions make them unlikable. This is why I get frustrated when people say that unlikable characters like Sakura are bad characters, because they're not. They're purposefully unlikable because they need to be for a certain idea or character arc to work. A character who is a shitty person can still be a good character if their character arc is treated properly. And I think that's one of the things that makes Sakura such an interesting character, especially in the early parts of the series. I'll probably be dedicating an entire video to a defense of Sakura at some point so we can discuss why the useless meme needs to fucking die, but for now I just want to focus on how Sakura is introduced and why it makes her a character that's interesting to follow right from the beginning. As previously stated, Sakura is pretty despicable on all fronts for almost the entire episode. Her only redeeming quality is that she's a cute anime girl, and even that's a bit debatable, but Naruto has a crush on her, so she is cute. Even when Naruto is disguised as Sasuke and gets Sakura to talk about him though, she totally throws him under the bus and trash talks him non-stop. One might wonder why Naruto would continue to have a crush on someone who treats him like garbage, but as someone who was also once a lonely teenage boy, trust me when I say it's not hard to imagine. Then she has a brief conversation with Sasuke, the guy she's actually crushing on, inadvertently acts like an insensitive bitch, and hits a sore spot that really pisses him off, prompting him to give her a taste of her own medicine. Rather than shrug this off or try to ignore it, Sakura actually thinks about it and how she's been treating Naruto this whole time. Sakura might be a bitch, but she's also smart, as exemplified by later episodes. She's not completely oblivious to the things around her, but like everyone else, she needs an occasional reminder that she's taking it too far. On top of that, she's not exactly a confident or emotionally secure person either. She doubts herself. She has self-image issues because she has a pronounced forehead, which she attempts to hide with her hair. She realizes that she's not exactly the cream of the crop, and so being treated as poorly as she treats Naruto really hits home. I wouldn't necessarily call this a character arc per se, since it's so short in comparison to what she does later, but it's still an important lesson for her to learn and has a small but noticeable effect on her character going forward. Then they have this stupid repetitive scene at the very end that wasn't in the original manga, but they added it in because they needed to fill up the time slot. It's not offensively bad, but still unnecessary and takes a bit of poignancy away from the aforementioned character growth. And then there's Sasuke, the internet's favorite emo punching bag, who gets way more shit than he deserves, at least in the beginning. Again, this is a topic that probably deserves its own video eventually, but for right now I want to focus on how Sasuke is presented solely in episode 3. Almost immediately, Sasuke is shoved into the role as the rival character, the one who's going to stand in Naruto's way or serve as strong competition for Naruto to compare himself to. Again, this is another extremely common archetype in Shonen Jump, though I'm not sure where I'd rank him amongst other Jump rivals. He's definitely no Killua, but he's also not as far down as that guy from Bleach whose name I forgot. He's more complex and compelling than Yuno from Black Clover, but not as much as Vegeta. I suppose I'd put him around Bakugo's level maybe, though he is an entirely different character from Bakugo in many regards, but now I'm getting off track again. Sakura pushing Naruto out of the way to get closer to Sasuke and then the other female characters doing the same immediately informs us not only that Sasuke is going to be the rival character, but also that he's immensely more popular than Naruto. Obviously, that second point isn't that surprising since most of the people Naruto meets hate him, but it's important to establish that not only is he more popular than Naruto, but that he's the most popular guy in class, with practically every girl, except the best one, fawning over him constantly. Rather than play up his popularity, however, Sasuke seems mostly annoyed by this gaggle of giddy girls vying for his attention, and this works pretty well on a character building level. Sasuke is not a party fun time kinda dude. He's quiet, unresponsive, and often fairly cold towards those who interact with him. And by having the Hokage and the other Jonin make reference to the fact that he's the only surviving member of his clan, we start to get an idea of why he might be like this, though the details of this event are still unclear at this point. And as viewers, this denial of his own popularity kind of ends up getting under our skin. Who doesn't want to be popular and well-liked? Who wouldn't want a bunch of cute girls fawning over them? Point being, Sasuke has a lot of something that Naruto has none of: attention and respect. This immediately puts Naruto in a foul mood, placing Sasuke on his shit list and setting up the rivalry to come. Of course, with Naruto being the worst student at the academy and Sasuke being the best, it's an extremely one-sided rivalry at first, though still not totally overbearing. Remember, Naruto is still capable of outrunning highly trained ninja, so we know that he can at least put up a fight, which he proves by getting the drop on Sasuke later in the episode. But as it turns out, getting the drop on him was Naruto's only advantage, as Sasuke easily escapes and confronts Naruto, showing us that Sasuke will prove to be a difficult rival for him to overcome. There's not a whole lot more in this episode about Sasuke, since it was smart of Kishimoto to save his tragic backstory for a bit later on and keep the mystery in the back of our minds, but we do still get a brief glimpse of it during his conversation with Sakura. During this scene, Sakura says that Naruto is annoying and ill-mannered because he doesn't have a family watching over him. Obviously, as the only surviving member of his own clan, this really pisses Sasuke off, and so he puts Sakura in her place, telling her that she doesn't understand what true loneliness feels like. Not only is this a great setup for Sasuke's own character, but also for his rivalry / eventual friendship with Naruto. Again, Kishimoto uses foil characters like Hirohiko Araki uses bizarre poses and Kentaro Miura uses hiatuses, and as such, the relationship between Naruto and Sasuke eventually becomes one of the biggest driving forces behind the entire series, for better or for worse. Planting the seeds of this so early on by giving Sasuke something that he can empathize with Naruto on immediately takes him out of the asshole rival category and makes him a character that's much easier to gravitate towards. In this episode, we've experienced two radically different types of characterization. One uses a rather bold and risky set of tactics to create an extremely flawed character who will eventually be redeemed, while the other is played mostly by the book, with his true motivations being kept a secret until later. And both of them work pretty well. Yes, one is more effective than the other, but both of them effectively sell these characters to the audience and make us interested in seeing more of them. However, there's still one element missing, one crucial component to make Squad 7 a complete unit. Despite all of them being officially assigned to the same squad, they're all still acting individually. They're not hanging out, they're not trying to get to know each other, they're not even close to having a team mentality yet. And that is where Kakashi comes in. The main teacher archetype isn't exactly diverse in terms of what kind of traits are used to construct it. Appears dim-witted and unqualified at first, but is soon revealed to be incredibly skilled, known for a track record of failing a large number of students, has a perverted side. You've seen all of this before, and it's all present in Kakashi. However, I've never been one to get hung up on cliches if they're handled well, and I'd say they definitely are in this case. Kakashi easily ranks among the coolest shonen battle teachers I've experienced so far, with his sardonic, I could give a fuck about your opinion demeanor immediately leaving a memorable impression. The contrast between Kakashi and Iruka is almost like an adrenaline shot in the arm, and is exactly what Naruto et al. Need to jumpstart their development. You see, Iruka is just an academy teacher. Yes, he understands what it's like out in the field, but his job is to teach his students the very basics in a controlled classroom setting so that they have a strong fundamental understanding of the skills they'll be using. Kakashi, meanwhile, is a field operative, someone who deals with life or death situations on a daily basis. His job is to A. build upon the foundation that Iruka has laid down, B. weed out those who he deems unfit to perform the duties of a ninja out in the field, and C. expose them to the dangerous environment that they'll be working in. This last idea becomes incredibly poignant when Kakashi reveals the meaning behind the monument shown in episode 5, a memorial to those killed in action bearing the name of many of his old friends. If you can't operate effectively, you're going to die and put the rest of your squad at risk. Of course Kakashi has never passed a single group of students before. Of course he shows total disdain for the newly formed Squad 7, who are all so wrapped up in their own personal desires that they can't even understand the basics of teamwork and camaraderie. This is what sets Kakashi apart from other jump teachers that have come before and after. Yes, he is here to train Naruto and the others so that they can each get better as ninja and develop their own personal skills, but more importantly, he's here to turn them into an effective and cooperative squad of ninja who are able to use complex strategies that only a team can pull off. I know the whole shonen friendship thing has been overplayed to death by this point, but it actually matters a lot that the characters in Naruto are able to get along. If they don't, they are going to fail any mission that they go on and possibly even die in the line of duty. This also ties into the morals that the series tries to instill in its readers, as well as about the value of teamwork and cooperation. Not exactly a very unique moral, but still incredibly important. These episodes also reinforce another narrative through line that is extremely prevalent in Naruto. A ninja must see through deception. These guys have to be able to see through to the heart of the matter and fully understand their situation, rather than just continue on working with surface knowledge and the inherent biases that they've been relying on for most of their lives. Being a ninja is going to be a difficult and dangerous job, and Kakashi has no qualms about informing his students of this in the most direct and forceful way possible. If they cannot work together, they will die, plain and simple. And it's through Kakashi's strict teachings that the three of them are able to see through his deception and understand what's most important in regards to a mission's success, thus allowing them to pass and move on to becoming full-fledged ninja. In summary, I think it's safe to say that there's a lot more to the opening episodes of Naruto than one might originally believe. Sometimes it plays things safe, and sometimes it goes well beyond what's expected. But in the end, most of it is really good. Naruto has a much stronger start than I think people give it credit for, and I'd like to think that I've proven that with these videos. Of course, this is far from being the whole story. I didn't make these videos just to talk about the opening episodes. In fact, the genesis of this series began when I was taking a retrospective on the first major arc of the series, an arc that, if my memory is correct, might very well be one of the best shonen arcs ever written. But we're out of time for now, so I guess I'll see you in part 3. Special thanks to Jan Rogalski, Rourketon Join, Kushina Minami, Christine Seibert, and all my other patrons for their generous support. My name is Ember, and I'll see you next time.